Emily Miller learned something important on the morning of her third wedding anniversary, though she did not realize it at first. She stood in the kitchen of their small Seattle apartment, the rain tapping lightly against the window, holding 2 warm cups of coffee. Jason was tying his shoes near the door, his mind already somewhere else. He talked about traffic, deadlines, and a meeting that could not wait. He kissed her cheek without really looking at her and rushed out. The door closed softly. The coffee grew cold. Emily did not remind him what day it was. She simply stood, there feeling a quiet ache settle into her chest. Their marriage had not fallen apart in one loud moment. It had faded in small ways. Jason was not cruel or unkind. He paid bills on time, fixed broken things, and spoke politely. But he rarely asked how Emily felt. He did not notice when she was tired or when her voice carried worry. Emily worked as a school counselor, listening to children every day, holding their fears gently. By the time she came home, she needed someone to listen to her too. Jason was often too busy, too distracted, to sure that things were fine. That evening, they drove north toward Vancouver to visit Jason's parents. The road was long, lined with tall trees and gray skies. Emily watched the world pass by and wondered when she had started feeling lonely beside her own husband. Jason drove with one hand on the wheel, talking about work, not noticing her silence. She nodded at the right moments, playing her part well. Jason's childhood home sat on a quiet street, warm lights glowing through the windows. The moment Emily stepped inside, she felt something ease. The house smelled like fresh bread and wood, polish. Then Robert Miller appeared from the hallway, smiling with calm warmth. He was in his early 60s, tall, with gentle eyes that seemed to rest on people instead of rushing past them. "Emily," Robert said, his voice steady and kind, "you look tired, long week." Emily froze for half a second. No one had noticed that. She smiled politely and nodded. It was busy. Robert took her coat without hurry and asked about her work, not in a casual way, but with real interest. He remembered the name of a student she had mentioned months ago. He asked how that child was doing. Emily felt something tighten in her throat. Jason was already talking to his mother in the kitchen, laughing, unaware. Dinner passed quickly. Jason spoke about plans, numbers, and future goals. Emily listened. Robert listened to her. When she spoke, he did not interrupt. He did not check his phone. He leaned slightly forward, as if her words mattered. Emily felt both comforted and uneasy by this attention. Later, while Jason helped his mother clean up, Emily sat in the living room. The fire crackled softly. Robert poured her a cup of tea and sat across from her, not too close, but present. Outside, snow had begun to fall, slow and quiet. "You carry a lot," Robert said gently. "People who care for others often forget themselves." Emily did not answer right away. She stared into her cup, watching the steam rise. "Sometimes," she said, choosing her words carefully, "I feel invisible." Robert nodded as if he understood exactly what she meant. "That can happen in long relationships," he said. "Not because love is gone, but because people stop paying attention." His words stayed with her. Jason returned, cheerful and relaxed, talking about an old memory. Emily smiled, but something inside her had shifted. That night, Emily lay awake, beside Jason, listening to his steady breathing. She wondered when he had last asked her how she truly felt. She wondered why his father seemed to see her so clearly after only a few conversations. The thought filled her with guilt, but also with sadness. The visit ended the next morning. On the drive back to Seattle, Jason talked about buying a bigger place someday. Emily watched the road and thought about how a life could grow bigger and still feel empty. Weeks passed. Life returned to routine, but Emily could not forget the way Robert had spoken to her. Calm and honest. She noticed the contrast everywhere now. Jason forgot small things. He missed her tone when she was upset. He loved her in his own way, but it felt distant, planned, and safe. Not warm. One afternoon, Emily received a message from Jason. He needed to stop by his parents' house again for a repair job and asked if she wanted to join later with lunch. She hesitated, then agreed. She told herself it was normal. Family was family. When she arrived, Robert greeted her with the same gentle smile. They spoke while Jason worked in the garage. The conversation flowed easily. Robert asked about Emily's dreams, not her duties. She spoke about once wanting to write, about wanting to feel useful beyond responsibility. Robert listened without judgment. "I waited too long to listen to my own heart," Robert said quietly. "I thought doing the right thing meant ignoring what I felt." Emily felt the weight of his words. She knew he was not speaking only about himself. She also knew that nothing should change between them. The line was clear, even if emotions blurred near it. When Emily left that afternoon, she felt conflicted. Nothing improper had happened. Yet she felt more understood than she had in years. The drive home was quiet. She wondered how love could exist and still feel absent. She wondered if noticing another person's kindness was wrong, or if it simply revealed what she lacked. That night, Jason barely noticed her silence. He talked. She listened. Emily realized that part one of her story was not about choosing between people. It was about waking up to a truth she had been avoiding. A truth that would not stay quiet much longer. Emily returned to her routine in Seattle, but nothing felt quite the same. Days that had once been ordinary now seemed empty and heavy with unspoken feelings. She poured her energy into her work, helping students navigate their problems, yet, even in the laughter and chatter of the school, a quiet restlessness lingered inside her. Jason was consistent in his absence, distracted and preoccupied, leaving Emily with a growing awareness of the distance between them. She could not help but notice the contrast every time she remembered Robert's attentive presence, his patience, his calm listening. And the way he saw her heart made her feel alive in a way she had not felt in years. One Friday afternoon, Jason called his father for help with some home repairs. He asked Emily if she wanted to join, saying she could bring lunch. She hesitated for a moment, questioning herself. But family visits had always felt safe, even comforting, so she agreed, driving through the familiar route to Vancouver. She felt her chest tighten with a strange mixture of anticipation and guilt. She reminded herself repeatedly that nothing inappropriate could or would happen. Still, she could not deny the flutter of excitement she felt at the thought of seeing Robert again. When she arrived, Robert greeted her warmly, smiling as if the world had paused to notice her. The air felt lighter in his presence, calm and welcoming. Jason was already in the garage, tools scattered, focused entirely on fixing a broken cabinet. Emily set down the lunch she had packed, smiling politely at her father-in-law. He invited her to sit in the sunlit kitchen where the window overlooked the snowy garden. The conversation started casually, talking about the weather and shared memories from the past, but gradually shifted to more personal matters. Robert asked Emily about her dreams. Not the kind constrained by responsibilities or practicalities, but the ones she had tucked away in the corners of her heart. She told him about her wish to write stories that could touch people's lives, about the small notebook she kept hidden in her drawer filled with half-finished tales. Robert listened without interruption, leaning back in his chair, giving her his full attention. His eyes were gentle, and the way he nodded occasionally encouraged her to keep speaking. Emily felt a strange relief, as if speaking aloud made the dreams tangible for the first time in years. "You shouldn't wait for later," Robert said softly. "Later may never come. Happiness is something you have to claim, even when it seems inconvenient or uncertain." His voice carried an authority that was not demanding, but gentle and persuasive. Emily felt tears prick the edges of her eyes. No one had ever spoken to her like that before, as if her happiness mattered above everything else. She remembered Jason's polite conversations, his distracted smiles, his brief touches that lacked warmth. And she realized how lonely she had been, even when living with the person she had promised herself to. Jason called them both into the garage after lunch, smiling and waving tools around. Emily excused herself with a polite smile, but the tension in her chest did not ease. While Jason worked, she returned to the kitchen, sitting quietly with Robert. They continued talking about life, regrets, and moments they had missed. Robert shared memories of his younger years, the mistakes he had made, and the lessons he had learned. Emily listened, captivated, and felt a connection that was more emotional than physical connection, built on understanding and attention. I often ignored what my heart wanted, Robert admitted. I thought responsibility meant suppressing feelings, making choices that seemed right on paper. But over time, I realized that ignoring yourself doesn't protect you. It only builds quiet regret. His words resonated deeply with Emily. She nodded slowly, realizing that she had been living in that very quiet regret, following routines, managing life's duties, and neglecting her own needs. She had loved Jason once, she reminded herself, but now she recognized that love had been overshadowed by indifference. The afternoon faded into early evening, the snow casting a soft glow on the ground outside. Emily felt torn, caught between loyalty to her husband and the undeniable emotional pull she felt toward Robert's understanding presence. She reminded herself repeatedly that boundaries were clear, that she was committed to Jason, and that nothing inappropriate should happen. But the safety and comfort of being seen, truly seen, created an inner conflict she could not easily shake. Driving home, Emily was quiet. Jason chatted about trivial things from the garage, not noticing her introspection. She kept her thoughts to herself, replaying the conversation with Robert, analyzing every word and gesture. Her mind was a storm of conflicting feelings: guilt, longing, appreciation, and fear. She understood the danger of emotional intimacy outside marriage. Yet she could not ignore the truth that she felt more alive and acknowledged in Robert's presence than she had in years with Jason. That night, she lay awake in bed, Jason's breathing steady beside her. Her heart pounded softly, not with passion, but with awareness. Awareness of what she had been missing, of how much attention and kindness meant to her, and how little of it had existed in her marriage. She realized that her story was not about Robert being better than Jason in a romantic sense, but about feeling seen, valued, understood, the fundamental needs of the human heart. Over the next few weeks, Emily began noticing small things in herself. She smiled more easily, felt lighter at work, and even started jotting down ideas for her stories again. Robert continued to check in occasionally, with short messages asking about her well-being or offering encouragement. Emily treasured these interactions, though she kept them strictly appropriate. Recognizing that the line between emotional support and emotional dependence was thin and must be respected, she became increasingly aware that her marriage required more than routine, and obligation needed attention, care, and genuine connection. Emily's awareness sparked a quiet determination. She began thinking about conversations she could have with Jason, about gently expressing her needs and the distance she felt. She realized that ignoring her emotions or pretending everything was fine would only deepen the loneliness. She did not seek to replace Jason with Robert. She wanted to reclaim her own voice, to reclaim her happiness and emotional freedom within the boundaries of her life. Then one evening, Robert sent her a simple message: "I hope you are well. You deserve happiness." Emily stared at the words for a long time. They were not an invitation, not a promise, but a reminder that someone saw her, that someone recognized her worth. The message felt like a soft nudge toward self-reflection, urging her to consider what she truly wanted and needed from life. She realized that emotional honesty, both with herself and with Jason, was essential. Emily knew she stood at a crossroads. The story was no longer about romantic tension, but about awakening to her own needs and emotions. She understood that the next steps she took could shape the course of her life, for better or worse. The challenge was not choosing between men, but choosing to confront reality, to seek genuine understanding and care in her relationships. She recognized that personal fulfillment and emotional safety were not selfish, they were essential for a meaningful life. The weeks passed, and Emily continued to navigate her complicated feelings. She spoke with Jason more intentionally, sharing small thoughts and encouraging him to open up. She did not expect immediate change, but she planted seeds of awareness. At the same time, she maintained appropriate distance from Robert, appreciating his guidance without letting it replace the relationship she had vowed to honor. The balance was delicate, but it taught her resilience and emotional clarity. One quiet evening, Emily reflected on how far she had come. She had discovered the importance of being heard, of being valued, and of recognizing emotional neglect in subtle forms. She had learned that admiration for someone's kindness, even when they were a family member, did not equate to betrayal. Instead, it was a mirror reflecting what she had been missing. Her heart had awakened not to another man, but to herself. Emily realized that her marriage could survive if she approached it with honesty and care. She had begun understanding Jason's limitations, while also acknowledging that love required more than duty. It required attention, empathy, and emotional presence. The lessons she had learned from Robert about listening and truly seeing someone would guide her in fostering a deeper connection with Jason. As she prepared for another visit to Vancouver, Emily felt a renewed sense of purpose. She carried with her the lessons of emotional awareness, the knowledge that her needs were valid, and the courage to seek a balanced, meaningful life. Robert's presence had been a catalyst, a gentle reminder of what care and attention could feel like. Jason remained her husband, her partner in life, and she hoped to awaken his awareness in ways that could strengthen their bond. The story did not end in a dramatic choice or a scandal. Instead, it lingered on the edge of possibility, on the threshold of emotional growth and understanding. Emily's journey was one of self-discovery, emotional awakening, and careful navigation of love and loyalty. She understood that happiness was not about replacing someone, but about reclaiming her own voice, demanding to be seen, and nurturing connections that truly mattered.